I kicked my sister's family out in the middle of the night in a different country. Her kids almost unalived my dog. She says I'm horrible for doing so and her kids were just being kids. So I, 28 female, have moved to the US 3 years ago with my husband, 30 male, after getting our green cards approved. We moved to Central Florida, notorious for all its tourist attractions. Since we moved, my sister, 33 female, and her family, husband 37 male, nephew 13 male, and niece 11 female, have visited every year around this time. We love to host and even bought a house to accommodate family and friends visiting. The issue started on the third day of their visit. I left the night before for a night shift at the hospital and my husband had a very early one. When I got home by 1 p.m. I found my puppy 9 months locked in the garage. He doesn't have access to that area because there is no AC there. This is Florida in the summer, and I am afraid he will run away when the door opens. It was pure luck that he was laying down so close to the entry door, or I could have ran him over before I saw him. He was lethargic and breathing heavily, so I immediately took him to the vet. He was overheated and dehydrated, and he could have passed if I hadn't gotten there when I did. I finally returned home at about 7 p.m. When I entered, I instantly saw my favorite vase. I got it from my late grandma, wasn't in the center table. I opened the trash only to find it there, in pieces. I was already fuming about my puppy when I pulled up the images from the house cameras I had recently installed because of the dog. In the images I saw that at 9-ish the kids said goodbye to my husband and their parents, and when they left, they proceeded to discuss whose turn was it to break something. My nephew argued that he had done it last year, so it was my niece's turn. My niece then proceeded to throw one glass on the floor, at which point my puppy got fussy and started barking. They got annoyed, so they took him to the garage before returning, picking up my vase and smashing it on the floor. When their parents returned, they simply said they had an accident. My sister cleaned it up and they made their way to the parks. My blood boiled. I immediately packed their bags and put it by the door. My husband arrived and helped out. As soon as they arrived, I told them how their kids behaved, that they caused harm to my dog and broke something irreplaceable to me. My sister tried to argue that it was an accident and that they're just kids, and I shoved the video into her face. She still tried to argue, saying we were family and she didn't have money to pay for a hotel for the rest of the trip and it was the middle of the night. I simply stated I didn't care and she had to take her little monsters away from me. She left screaming and then crying. Obviously, this morning I woke up to several messages in the family group calling me all sorts of names for kicking them out in a different country, and how I was being mean. My mom wrote about how disappointed she was at me. I didn't have the energy to reply to anyone back yet. Update: there are way more responses than I was expecting. Thank you guys for everything, from legal advice to how to handle my family. First things first, my dog is fine. He spent the night at the vet getting fluids and under observation. He is back to his bouncy self and got pampered with extra treats and a toy. Secondly, I came here because I was mentally exhausted from very long work hours. Besides the whole ordeal, we have been short-staffed in the hospital I work and longer shifts have been common, which is why I wanted opinions before I spoke to my family. Although the majority here said not the whole, I did take into account what those who thought differently said. I realized I never explained how the conversation with Sis went down. That night when they returned, I sat their entire family down and proceeded to explain that their bags were there because their stay depended on our following chat. I started by bringing up the pieces of my vase and asking what happened. My sister quickly said the kids had an accident and dropped it, but it was no big deal since she cleaned it up. I asked her if she remembered whose vase that was and she said she did, but that it didn't matter because it was broken now. This was shockingly offensive and cruel. My brother-in-law had a lost expression, so I explained it to him, saying it was our deceased grandma's gift to me. After this, he too seemed disturbed by her response. Then I asked them where was my dog. The kids shared a look but said nothing. Brother-in-law was again confused and Sis, in an offended tone, said I should know since it was my dog. I agreed and proceeded to show her and the husband the video evidence and explained my baby almost perished due to what they did. My niece was shocked, upset and cried while her brother didn't even react. At no point did either of them apologize. The adults stayed quiet for a minute, and when my brother-in-law began to tell off their kids, she interrupted and said that my niece was already crying and that they were just being kids. I'll admit this is when I lost my cool and informed them that their actions were appalling and that they should have consequences. My sister told me to stay in my lane and that it wasn't my place to tell her how to parent. I agreed and added that my house wasn't their place either and that they were no longer welcomed because they sis and kids could not comprehend their actions as being wrong and refused to take accountability. Brother-in-law understood where I was coming from and tried to apologize. Sis interrupted him and told him to be quiet while acting as if this was all my fault. Not gonna lie, I do feel bad for the guy now that I had time to think about it. She clearly rules over him. I don't feel bad about them leaving. It was a weight lifted off my shoulders. When I said they complained about not having money for a hotel, it's because they were planning to spend their money at the outlets. They are not poor, nor would they be on the streets. As for the update, yesterday I used the message one of you suggested as a base for my rant in the family chat. I did in fact included the video of the kids doing what they did and the vet bill $1,600, which most is covered by insurance. That chat lit up faster than fireworks on the 4th. As some of you guessed, the siblings were playing this sick game of breaking people's things everywhere they went, and family caught up to it. I got apologies all around. My sister is uninvited to come over by everyone and was called some harsh names by the lies she told them. Let's just say this is not the first time she pulled something disrespectful at someone else's home. By the way, she said I kicked them out because they were eating too much of my food and being too much of a hassle. It wouldn't be a lie, as they were in fact all that. Yet, I was okay with it, as it is a part of being a good host. But she conveniently forgot to mention all the above. Later I got a call from my mom berating me for airing our dirty laundry in the chat and how that should have been handled privately. I called her out on her BS and told her that this time she couldn't protect sister from the consequences, especially after her bad parenting. In the end, she tried to convince me to take them back because they are family and putting this much of a financial burden on them is too much. I asked what punishment would be adequate in her eyes, and she simply said that paying for the hotel this far is punishment enough. Nope, not in the slightest. I even went as far as to say her mother would be the one disappointed in her for the way she favored my sister. Grandma called that out many times, and the amount of disrespect her grandkids and daughter showed to the vase she gave me on my wedding day. Mom put in the waterworks and said I had no idea how hard my sister had since she didn't have the same opportunities I had being a doctor and moving here. I called BS again and pointed out my sister chose to not go to college, got married and pregnant right after school, but that before that, we had the same opportunities. Yes, I am privileged to have the life I have, but I studied and worked hard all my life for it. I stood my ground and said they were not welcomed at my place anymore, and frankly to my life if they didn't apologize. I also offered to help out with psychological therapy for the kids, as I think this behavior is very concerning. I added that if she agreed with their actions, the same would be valid to her, as I'm done being treated badly for being reasonable. Then I hung up. No word from my sister. This is it so far, but I can try to update if anything comes up. P.S. For those that asked, I tried recalling things they broke in previous years, and remembered the following: 1 to 2 Disney mugs, 2 to 3 plates, and last year my nephew bumped into a side table, breaking a lamp while playing with his sister. Now I know better, since these were all instances where they were alone.